So good morning class. Today's topic is infection in pregnancy. For the convenience, I've divided the topic into three parts. First will be the viral infections in pregnancy. Second part will be in bacterial infections, and third will be protozoal and fungal infections. Today I'll start with viral infections. First among this will come the torch infections. Torch infections acronym is toxoplasmosis, and first toxoplasmosis is a protozoal infection, but I'll cover the topic here only, and other will be discussed later. Rubella, cytomegalovirus, and herpes simplex. Rubella, cytomegalovirus, and herpes simplex are the viral infections. Coming to other infections, syphilis is caused by Treponema pallidum. It's a bacterial infection. Next is measles. It is also viral infection. Influenza, viral infection. Chickenpox caused by Varicella zoster. It is also a viral infection. Parvovirus caused by Parvovirus B19. It's a DNA virus. Mumps, HIV. HIV will be dealing, this topic will be dealt by Dr. Vijay Kumar, the HOD, because this is a quite important topic and it is an essay question for you. Next is hepatitis. Coming to torch infections, why we have to study about the torch infections and when the torch infections screening must be done. Torch infection screening must be done prior to the conception. Why torch infection screening is important? Because each particular disease, each pathogen involved in torch complex, they are teratogenic to the fetus because they cause the transplacental barrier very easily, and they adversely affect the developing fetus, leading to various congenital anomalies, and the effect of each varies depending upon the developmental stage at the time of exposure. So earlier the woman is exposed, suppose if the woman is infected in the first trimester of the pregnancy during the period of organogenesis, she'll have more congenital anomalies in the developing fetus. And if she is infected after 20 weeks or 26 weeks, the risk of congenital anomalies will be less. Even though toxoplasmosis is a protozoal infection, I'll discuss here itself. It is caused by the protozoan Toxoplasma gondii. It is an obligate intracellular parasite. It is transmitted by ingestion of the raw or partially cooked meat, especially pork, or with contact with infected cat feces, because some people prefer to have cats as their pets, and the pregnant women who come in contact with these infected cats, they transmit the infection earlier. And this toxoplasma causes the transplacental barrier very easily, and also the women who have undergone a recent organ transplant or with an immunocompromised status are also at risk of developing toxoplasma. See, that is the chain of transmission, vertical transmission from the mother to the fetus. It is caused by either infection contact with the sexual, it is also a sexually transmitted disease by the feces of the cat, undercooked meat, and unpasteurized milk. These are the sources of infection of toxoplasmosis. So what are the clinical manifestations you remember? You don't need to remember each and every clinical manifestation. I'll highlight only the important clinical manifestations. The classical triad of toxoplasmosis is chorioretinitis, that is eye symptoms, hydrocephalus, and intracranial calcifications. So the child will be born as a blind with ocular toxoplasmosis. The typical picture in the retinal examination will be head in the fog appearance, headlight in fog appearance. This is the picture of head in light fog appearance. It is an inactive retinochoroidal scar secondary to toxoplasmosis. So other manifestations of toxoplasmosis apart from chorioretinitis, hydrocephalus will be microcephaly, organomegaly, jaundice, fever, rash, and psychomotor retardation. So how to detect this antibody? This antibody is detected by ELISA. All the viral infections, most of the viral infections are detected by ELISA or complement fixation or PCR. So how to treat? Suppose the pregnant woman is screened for torch infection, you prescribe her spiramycin 1 gram orally 3 times a day. Suppose if the patient is allergic to spiramycin, the alternate combination is pyrimethamine and sulfadiazine combination. The most important side effect of pyrimethamine sulfadiazine combination is bone marrow suppression. So when you are co-prescribing pyrimethamine sulfadiazine combination, you have to co-prescribe leucovorin, that is the 10 to 25 milligram per day to prevent bone marrow suppression. So the treatment for, I am not going to tell the details in the dosage. You can refer it later in your textbook. So the treatment will be spiramycin or pyrimethamine and sulfadazine plus leucovorin. So most of the viral infections are preventable. Before treatment, you can prevent the transmission of infection. So women who are planning to pregnancy, who are at risk of this toxoplasmic infection, have to get a TOT screening before, and they have to handle the infected cat feces by wearing a gloves. They have to cook the food properly, especially when they cook meat, and they have to thoroughly pasteurize the milk. So there's a few safety precautions to prevent the transmission of the toxoplasmosis from the mother to fetus. Next infection is rubella. So rubella causes an anomaly in the fetus that is called congenital rubella syndrome. So the classical manifestation of rubella infected fetus will be blueberry muffin spots on the face that represent, see, these are the blueberry muffin spots that represent dermal erythropoiesis or dermatoglyphic abnormalities. Rubella, coming to the history of rubella, rubella meaning is little red. It is caused by the family Togaviridae. Nearly, rubella is asymptomatic in most of the individuals. The majority of complications of rubella and its teratogenic effects are seen only if the woman is affected in the early weeks of gestation. The virus can be transmitted to the fetus through placenta and is capable of causing congenital defects, abortions, and stillbirths. So the incubation period will be 2 to 3 weeks, and it is highly contagious during this period. And the source of spread will be nasopharyngeal secretions. And the woman will present with conjunctivitis, sore throat, headache, generalized body aches, low-grade fever, chills, anorexia, nausea, and lymphadenopathy. Fever, rash, cough, and lymphadenopathy. All the viral infections will have these 4 symptoms. So once the woman gets infected with rubella, she will have 3 days measles. That is, the 3-day measles derives the typical course of rubella exanthem. It starts initially on the face and neck, then spreads centrifugally to the trunk and extremities and disappear in the reverse order. And the temperature will be more than 101 degrees with enlarged lymph nodes, particularly post-auricular and suboccipital lymph nodes on physical examination. And in the mother, you have 4 shimmer spots on the soft palate of the mouth. So the mother will have 4 shimmer spots and the baby will have blueberry muffin spots. These 2 will be asked as an objective questions. The typical clinical features, apart from the blueberry muffin spots in the fetus, will be sensory neural illness, ocular abnormalities that include cataract and infantile glaucoma along with pigmentary retinopathy, and congenital heart disease in the fetus, that will be PDA with pulmonary artery stenosis. See, the rubella can also be diagnosed by ELISA, fluorescent antibody, or complement fixation test. And if you want to study still further, you can isolate the virus and do culture of the urine and endocervical secretions. Management of rubella is just supportive treatment with mild analgesics and rest. And to the fetus, there is no specific treatment for the congenital rubella syndrome. And the best way of prevention of rubella is vaccination of the mother prior to pregnancy or 1 month before she plans a pregnancy, because the MMR vaccine is that is a live vaccine and it is contraindicated in pregnancy now. All the live vaccines are contraindicated in pregnancy. Only inactivated vaccines can be given. So the prevention will be health education, prior immunization before planning pregnancy, and the women who are non-immune to rubella should avoid anyone with rubella or the symptoms of rubella. Next virus is cytomegalovirus. Cytomegalovirus is a DNA virus which is a member of herpes family, and the people who are at risk are those who attend daycare centers and people who undergo multiple blood transfusions and have multiple sex partners and recipients with organ and bone marrow transplantation. Cytomegalovirus is the one virus which is sexually transmitted. So it is very common in young children, more commonly between 1 to 3 years in children will be excreting CMV virus through the contact with saliva, urine, feces, blood and mucus. It can be also transmitted through sexual transmission. Same, the cytomegalovirus will have the same symptoms like sore throat, high fever, body aches, fatigue, and hepatomegaly. Most of the maternal infections are asymptomatic, but in the neonate, they will have a serious intracranial or the neurological complications. The baby will have IUGR, microcephaly, CNS abnormalities, hydrocephaly, periventricular calcification, deafness, blindness, and all the symptoms related to the brain. These are the symptoms of CMV virus if the newborn is affected. And the CMV is detected by ELISA, fluorescent antibody, complement fixation test, or by a virus culture. And if you want to diagnose the disease in utero, the baby, you have to study the baby. You can do amniocentesis and cardiocentesis. The only one drug approved for CMV infection is ganciclovir or valganciclovir. And for the neonates, the treatment of symptoms and universal precautions like proper hand washing, do not share the utensils or glasses, and the universal safety precautions of the health workers. Coming to herpes simplex virus, here we have two types or two strains of herpes simplex virus. One is type 1 virus, which is usually associated with cold sores around the mouth, and type 2 is usually associated with the genital sores. So the virus belongs to herpes simplex family. The herpes simplex, after infecting, it will hide in the nerve cells and launch new attacks whenever the particular individual is immunocompromised. The two strains, HSV1 is traditionally associated with orofacial lesions, and more frequently it acquired in childhood and transmitted chiefly by contact with infected saliva. And herpes simplex virus 2 is associated with genital disease. The herpes 2 virus is a reactivated disease where once infected, it can reactivate itself whenever the individual is immunocompromised. It reactivates almost 8 to 10 times more frequently in the genital region than in the orolabial region. And presence may be an indirect measure of sexual activity and transmitted during the process of labor. So these are the typical lesions you can see with herpes simplex virus. These are the cutaneous lesions, herpes labialis, mucocutaneous lesions, and the newborn associated with herpes simplex. And in the genital area, you have a painful multiple vesicles or clusters of white spots in the genital area of the male and in the penis in the female, and in the mons pubis and in the perineal area of the female. So how to diagnose the herpes simplex virus? You can take a pap smear, or you can directly visualize the blister or ulcer by clinical examination, or you can take a tissue culture from the vesicles. And the only one approved drug for this herpes simplex is oral acyclovir, which can be used in the later months of pregnancy to decrease the need of cesarean birth. So the women who are having an active herpetic lesion should not undergo normal vaginal delivery. They should prefer cesarean birth, because during the process of the labor, she may infect the fetus, because the fetus has to pass through the ulcerated active genital growth. And acyclovir and vidarabine are used to treat the neonatal herpes simplex virus infection, more successful with localized infection rather than the extensive systemic spread. And how to prevent a herpes simplex virus infection? Encourage the woman with a history of genital herpes to avoid the triggers during the later part of the pregnancy, and use a barrier method during or abstinence in pregnant women. Encourage careful hand washing and take universal precautions. Patients with active cold sore lesions should avoid kissing each other, and educate women on the importance of reporting prodromal symptoms to the healthcare workers when in labor. Next is the measles virus. We have discussed the toxoplasma, rubella, cytomegalovirus, and herpes, and we are now discussing the other group of infections. And first and the other group will be the syphilis. Syphilis will be discussed in the next class. Now coming to the rest of the viral infections, measles. Measles is a RNA virus. It is non-teratogenic. The clinical features in the mother will be high-grade fever, whereas in the fetus, the complications, no particular congenital anomalies will be caused, but the rate of abortion, stillbirth, and premature delivery are more in the fetus infected with measles virus. So once a woman gets infected with the measles, there is no active immunization in pregnant women, but she can take serum immunoglobulin 5 ml within 3 days of exposure. Next is influenza virus. Influenza virus, there are many strains of influenza virus, and pregnancy is affected only if the strain is virulent. Influenza is also a non-teratogenic virus. Only one influenza strain that caused the congenital anomalies in the fetus is Asian influenza that caused anencephaly in the fetus, particularly in the women who are affected during the first trimester of the pregnancy. So apart from this non-teratogenicity, the other complications will be abortions and preterm labor. And in patients who wish to get immunized, inactivated influenza vaccine is available, and this can be administered during pregnancy and also in breastfeeding women. Coming to varicella zoster, varicella zoster is a DNA virus. It is caused by varicella zoster. It easily crosses the transplacental barrier and can cause congenital and neonatal chickenpox. So the lesions will be seen in the newborn also. Maternal mortality is highest due to varicella pneumonia. Congenital varicella syndrome is characterized by limb hypoplasia, limb deformity, chorioido-retinal scarring, cataract, microcephaly, and cutaneous scarring. The risk of congenital malformation is nearly absent when the maternal infection occurs after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Suppose a woman in the first trimester of pregnancy, you have to counsel the woman regarding the termination of the pregnancy because of the associated congenital anomaly. But as the woman the pregnancy advances and she gets infected after later weeks of pregnancy, there is no need for termination of the pregnancy except for the symptomatic management. So the varicella live attenuated vaccine is also not recommended for the pregnancy. Only influenza vaccine and hepatitis vaccine. These are the two inactivated vaccines that can be given to the pregnancy. The rest of all the viral infections who want to get immunized, they should get immunized prior to planning a pregnancy. So the test for detection for like varicella is like any other viral infection, ELISA. And suppose the woman is exposed during the pregnancy, she can be given varicella zoster immunoglobulin, and to the newborn should be given within 5 days of the delivery. And suppose the active lesions are there and the woman is about to conceive, about to deliver in the next few weeks, you can prescribe oral acyclovir to prevent the active transmission of the disease to the fetus. And in chickenpox, normal vaginal delivery is not contraindicated. Patient can opt for normal vaginal delivery if the pelvis is favorable. Next is parvovirus. Parvovirus B19, it's a DNA virus. The route of transmission is also transplacental. And the most important the side effect that causes and it affects the fetus is fetal anemia. It mainly affects the erythroid precursor cell, resulting in fetal anemia, aplastic crisis, congenital heart failure, first trimester abortions, and high drops. So how to detect fetal anemia in utero? The best test is ultrasound Doppler, and in the ultrasound Doppler we'll do the fetal middle cerebral artery peak Doppler velocity, which can study fetal anemia and fetal high drops, and we can in utero transfer the blood transfusion to prevent the fetal anemia and its complications. Next, another important topic is viral hepatitis. So viral hepatitis is a common cause of jaundice in pregnancy. There is an also increased incidence in pregnant state compared to non-pregnant state. So the illness is mostly restricted to illness in mothers' unhygienic environment. There are 6 distinct types of highly contagious virus. See, hepatitis A and hepatitis E are enterically transmitted, that is through the fecal-oral route. The route of transmission is fecal-oral, whereas the viral hepatitis B, D, C, F, G are parenterally transmitted or through sexual or blood transfusion. These are the mode of transmissions. Coming to hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis virus is transmitted through close personal contact, contaminated food and water, and rare is blood transfusion. Hepatitis virus to A transmission is fecal-oral. The disease is self-limited. Fulminant hepatitis is rare. The virus is non-teratogenic. Chronic carrier state doesn't exist in hepatitis A, and perinatal transmission is very rare. So women who are exposed to hepatitis A virus should receive immunoglobulin. The dosage here you have to remember 0.02 ml per kg within 2 weeks of exposure. She should also have hepatitis vaccine single dose 0.06 ml, which is safe in pregnancy. Next is hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is an essay question for you. You have to read it thoroughly and extensively. So the incubation period for the hepatitis B is around 60 to 90 days. The route of transmission for hepatitis B is parenteral route, sexual contact, vertical transmission, and also the breast milk. The risk of transmission to the fetus is 10% in the first trimester and 90% in the third trimester. So the risk is high in mothers who are seropositive both to HBsAg and HBeAg. Neonatal transmission, same like herpes, the neonatal transmission is more during the time of delivery. HBV or hepatitis B virus doesn't cause any congenital anomalies. 90 to 95% of the patients will have full recovery. Only 1% of the cases develop fulminant hepatitis and massive hepatic necrosis. 10 to 15% of the patients become chronic, leading to cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma. Treatment, first we have to know the preventive. The preventive measures is improving sanitation, supply of safe drinking water, maintain proper personal hygiene, use of disposable syringes, and screening of every blood donor for HBsAg and HIV. Suppose the woman gets exposed to HBsAg during her pregnancy. Patient who is initially seronegative should receive 2 doses of immunoglobulin 0.06 ml per kg after exposure. She should also receive recombinant DNA vaccine 1 ml at 0 month, the next month, and after 6 months. All infants born to HBsAg positive mother should also receive this immunoglobulin 0.5 ml intramuscular injection within 12 hours after birth, followed by active immunization as per the immunization schedule. So until the baby receives the immunoglobulin, she should not get breast milk. And perinatal transmission depends upon the maternal viral load. The higher the maternal load, the higher is the transmission to the fetus. And suppose you are suspecting any viral complications or hepatitis that's leading to any complications, you can give the mother lamivudine 150 milligrams per day from 34 weeks of pregnancy to reduce transmittal transmission if the viral load is high. Suppose, in spite of all the precautions, if the patient had developed a chronic, the acute viral hepatitis, and she developed an acute viral hepatitis, you have to isolate the patient, put her on bed rest, improve her nutrition. Then she should be prescribed a diet rich in carbohydrates and proteins. If the patient has any vomitings, you can prescribe IV glucose intravenously. And the drug of choice for acute viral hepatitis will be oral neomycin 1 gram to be repeated 6 hourly, and lactulose to prevent the toxic ammonia to get excreted. We give lactulose, that is 15 to 20, 30 ml 3 times daily. And electrolyte correction has to be done along with it. And any bleeding manifestations has to be corrected with fresh frozen plasma and blood. And suppose the patient has developed into labor with active viral hepatitis, hepatotoxic drugs should be avoided, and all the management of active management of labor should be done, and you should be ready to manage PPH, and the prophylactic oxytocin has to be given, and the baby has to be given intramuscular injection of vitamin K. Coming to hepatitis B, hepatitis D virus always coexists with hepatitis B virus. It acts as a co-infection, or it develops a super infection along with HPV, developing into chronicity. The route of transmission of hepatitis D is parenteral route or percutaneous exposure, and the fulminant course and mortality is high because here the two viruses act along with hepatitis D. Hepatitis B also comes into play. So the courses and mortality rate is high with the person who are infected with hepatitis D. Chronic carrier state is seen, and neonatal immunoprophylaxis for hepatitis B vaccine is almost effective for hepatitis D virus also. Hepatitis C virus, the incubation period average is 6 to 7 weeks. 6 to 7 weeks means that chronicity is more with hepatitis C. So the complications of hepatitis C is more compared to hepatitis B. If the hepatitis C is untreated, it can lead to hepatic encephalopathy, jaundice, pruritus, renal failure, and the flaring of hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism, the varices of esophagus, stomach, and rectum. There will be increased muscle wasting also. So the chronic course of hepatitis will be around 10 to 20 years. First, after the the person gets infected with hepatitis C, most of the cases, majority of the cases become chronic, and they develop into cirrhosis. and they also develop hepatocellular carcinoma also. Coming to hepatitis E virus. Hepatitis E virus is most affected in the women who are pregnant. So the incubation period is average 40 days. The route of transmission is fecal-oral. It similarly behaves as hepatitis A virus because the route of transmission for both the viruses is fecal-oral route. Maternal mortality is very high, leading to fulminant hepatitis. Especially pregnant women are more vulnerable to hepatitis E virus. Chronic carrier site is also present. Most outbreaks are associated with fecally contaminated matter. Next is hepatitis G virus. Hepatitis G virus, the mode of transmission is parenteral route. It behaves similarly like hepatitis C virus. Hepatitis D virus is same like hepatitis B virus. Hepatitis D virus, B virus. Hepatitis E virus like hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis G virus is like hepatitis C virus. But compared to hepatitis C virus, it is less virulent and it acts the co-infection along with hepatitis A, B, C and also HIV. Chronic carrier state is known and perinatal transmission is also seen. The complications are postpartum hemorrhage, hepatic coma, renal failure, coagulopathy, infection, hepatorenal syndrome. And in the fetus, there are more chances of abortion, preterm birth, and intrauterine death. So to brief up, and the important virus will be hepatitis B virus. The source of infection is blood and body fluids. The route of transmission is percutaneous or through blood transfusions. There is a chances of chronic infection. There is pre and post exposure immunization is available. So in that way, you can save the patient. For hepatitis A also, you have a pre and post exposure immunization. So hepatitis C, D, and E, they have no active immunizations. The vaccines for hepatitis B can protect against hepatitis D, and the vaccine for hepatitis A can protect against hepatitis E. So universal safety precautions has to be taken for all the all the six types. So to summarize, the viral infections, most of the viral infections in pregnancy are usually mild and self-limited. Teratogenicity is seen if the person is infected during the period of organogenesis or in the first trimester of pregnancy. Live attenuated vaccines are contraindicated in pregnancy, and inactivated vaccines are available only for few infections like influenza. Viruses like HIV, hepatitis B, C, and CMV can be sexually transmitted. Early screening and preventive measures can help reduce the rate of vertical transmission from the mother to the fetus. Thank you. కరెంట్ పోయింది ఇంకేనా అర్థం ఉందా కరెంట్ పోయింది కదా ఇంకేనా అర్థం